Arielle, tell me what you're currently harping on about.
In my podcast or in my life?
Just in general, like what's the first thing that comes to your head?
At the moment, we're in pre-production for a Anko Global home living shoot. And the pressure, I've started as a business to get shared spreadsheets of stock that we have to move in that. So I'm feeling a new level of pressure because I know that what we produce in this shoot, for example, it's like a lifestyle catalogue / like trend video. The B2B team of this much bigger business that I work for, Anko Global, which is owned by the Kmart group, is really intense because we're shooting lamps. I know that there's millions of dollars worth of lamp sales at stake here. To make the better the lamps look, the more lamps they sell. I've seen the spreadsheet of how many they think that they can have the sell through for. And it's not just like, oh, cool, this is the budget, this is the lamps, I've got to do this to make it look great. It's like, no, this is why you've got to do this lamp shoot. And I think I've always known that. But for some reason, getting sent the multi-million-dollar expectations here this week is just a whole new level. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Is it because you haven't seen the expectations of what they want from the advertisement?
I've always known that, and that's always been like my sweet spot, that I can speak unit and I can speak sales very, very well. But I think because now, I don't know, there's something that's happening with the dependency from Anko to me. I am basically positioned now as the global creative director, and then we do all the production. We run the socials across all the territories that they operate in, especially Anko Philippines. And it just is... It's really apparent to me now, and I think it's a big thing about, like, I've grown up a lot in the past year to 2 years with this new kind of contract that I'm working with in my production company / agency that I have. It's feeling different because usually, and my boyfriend was telling me this the other day, he's like, you used to do jobs as a filmmaker or as a creative or whatever, whatever capacity I'd be brought onto things, and it would be, you're on, it was like a lead up, pre-pro, you shoot it, the post, done. And it would be like, okay, cool, you kind of are briefed in, you shoot it, you're off the job, pay the invoice. It's kind of like put away. Now at this like retainer level, the adrenaline that shoots give you, that I think that all of us love for the circus that we're in here, is so frequent and always on. Like last week, I was on the biggest TVC job that I've ever directed. I produced the whole thing. I came up with the creative. And like the evolution that I've always wanted the production company to take of like, I can do it all, is now being granted at a global business level now. And it doesn't stop because it's like retainer, all agencies, like 12 p.m. today, we've got a social media meeting, then we've got an all agency connect. There's only 4 of us in the agencies that this business has chosen, and I'm the creative / social lead on this work, and it's contracted to Cinema Thom, and it's always on and it doesn't stop. And as soon as one job is delivered, I've got to be in the wings working through the next one, and I just have to share so much at such an intense level all the time. And it's so much data, creative. I have to do whips and tell them so many details so that they can keep their expectations at bay, so that they can answer to their people. It's just a whole wild west that I wasn't quite used to. And I'm definitely prepared for it. And I've just hired my first full-timer, which is like the biggest milestone ever. But it's just becoming really clear what this now looks like and what this new reality is now that I'm on like this level. Mm-hmm. And further to that, last week I was at the Commons, which is my workspace. I work from there, and they have like a founders kind of thing. They get all the founders together. There's like now like 900 founders or something working across the Commons Australia-wide. And I was talking to this guy, and he's like, the evolution of an entrepreneur, it was the guy that found Simon, who founded Who Gives a Crap. It was like talking to us about the evolution of an entrepreneur and how that works. And I don't really think I'm an entrepreneur. I'm much more of a creative, but I think you have to merge the two. Once you reach a certain level of success, you are off the tools, and you like, you know how it's like, oh, you are now where you wished you were a year ago. Yes, that evolution, but also that comes with a certain detachment style, and the adrenaline now is always on. And I think now that I'm in that, I'm really reflecting on, whoa, like, do I even want this? Of course I do, because it matches the lifestyle and the earning capacity and all of those things, but it's a lot. And so I guess that was such a long-winded answer. What I'm harping on about is just like this incredible readjustment into what I'm capable of, what my earning capacity is, what my creative capacity is, and how integral I am into this global business now. A contract is a contract, it could end tomorrow, but it's so different to what I thought that it would be and what I thought I was signing up for. So I'm very thoughtful and chatty about that because I'm like, is anyone else fucking freaking out like me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really intense.
Because I find when you kind of go on to that next level of like when you're like, oh, I have all of these responsibilities now. Do you feel like it's like going on to that next level of like, okay, I just need to almost like climatize to this level? Because how long have you been with Anko now?
I've been with Kmart for 5 years. Well, they've been a direct client, and then Anko in this capacity since May.
Okay, yeah.
So not long.
Yeah.
But yes, acclimatizing is absolutely the right word. And then I'm a bit of a larrikin about these things, like a cowboy, if you will, just because they need me to be so reactive all the time. Like, and that's how I run the business, and that's where a lot of success comes from. So, Arielle, these fans aren't selling, sell the fan. And I'm like, okay, we'll make a TikTok about a fan, sure. And then we do, it sells out. And that's like a lot of power in that reactivity. But now there is so much in this corporate world of planning that I'm not used to. And Mon, who I've just hired, is from the corporate creative world. So she's really helping me with these timelines. But she's asking me shit and I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, well, I know, but it's in my head. She's like, well, I'm here now, so you need to get it out. And I'm like, okay, sure. But it's wild. It's really hard, but rewarding when we get there and when that acclimatization actually happens, but we're definitely in the thick of acclimatizing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
On your Process podcast, you have these petite episodes, which are my personal favorites.
Yes, everybody loves those.
They're so good. One thing you said is like, I'm going to butcher how you said it, but it was essentially like, the most scariest thing for you is like if you're in the same position you were a year ago.
Oh yeah, that's terrifying. I hate that.
And like I resonate so deeply with that in terms of like if you're not evolving into like say this new capacity where you're at. So it's like almost like a reassurance, like almost I'm trying to reflect back to you of being like you're not where you were a year ago, but it's like, that almost adjustment period where you're like, oh my God, what is going on kind of thing.
I watched a podcast, like I went through a phase maybe 18 months ago. I was really into the broy culture on YouTube.
Is this like Alex Hormozy?
Yes.
Yeah, I went through this phase as well.
I love them.
Yeah,
They're great.
literally.
And they serve their purpose.
Yeah.
It's interesting their funnel of like where you meet them, but when you decide to meet them and let them seep into your creative pores, they're very informative and like they're classic because like you also can't have anything else on in the like you can't have that on the background because they're drilling shit into you. But one of them, I love Alex, so we can shout him out. But they made it really clear to me that if I was just doing what I was doing a year ago, the business isn't a business, it's a hobby. And I committed to myself like pre-kids, okay, let's actually do this business thing and really see like where we can move the needle to and how far we can take it. Yeah, and now we've got like a banging P&L. So
good.
I know, I said to my friend the other day, I was like, I've just done the juiciest P&L. And they were like, I've never heard anyone call a P&L juicy. And I was like, okay.
You're like, I'm going to coin this term.
Yeah, and I was like, mine is, so here we are. Absolutely. So yeah, but it's really exciting once you take that kind of like, and go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
And so if we go back, how did you start Cinema Thom? Like where did that kind of
It was an accident. I had a film, I was an actor. I went to New York when I was 18 and I was there for 3 or 4 years and trained as an actor. I moved home and started a production company because when you train overseas, you have to put yourself in work as an actor. I mean, in Australian schools, they have, drama schools, they have their like showcases. No one could see what I could do. And it wasn't necessarily the school that I went to Atlantic, which is part of the NYU conglomerate. And when you go to NYU, they're like, NY what? What are you talking about? Oh, like on Gossip Girl, cool. Like people don't know what that is, even though I was like, this is the best in the world. What the fuck? Nobody knew what it was. So I had to make some films with friends. And that's kind of where producing happened. And essentially producing at that level when you're like 22, 23, it's just to-do lists. And it's like, oh, you want me to sign off on that lens package? I don't know what that is, but sure. And then you just are doing what you're doing and you've got a Google spreadsheet, I guess, or a list of your budget written down on a piece of paper, and you just kind of reverse engineer the fact that you're a producer because you just have to get shit done. So that happened, and I was really lucky. I had a production company with a really dear friend of mine, Nick Denton, and he is now killing the acting game overseas. He lives in London, but we worked really hard together and became little like MIF darlings. We had 3 films in 3 years go through MIF, and I was consistently saving money to do programs like young people going to Cannes for the film festival, or young people going to Cannes Lions. And I got plugged into the Australian Directors Guild really early on, and I was at the Lions, I was at Cannes Film Festival, and I met, in part of my program, I met some people that I then networked with on a more global scale, and it was also around the Me Too movement. I wasn't sick of working with Nick by any means, but he was in the really like indie kind of a space, and his acting ability was unlike anything, and he's so good to watch that I sort of looked at it and was like, I'm always going to be the supporting actor here if Nick is to write our scripts and all that kind of thing, and I wasn't confident enough as a director. So Cinema Thom came about because I entered my first comedy short that I had written by friends that I met at the Cannes Film Festival, and I produced it, directed it, and I was the lead, and I was with, it was with another girl, Eleanor, who I met at Cannes, and we co-directed it. But really quickly it came about that I was getting invited to places. Once this film, Meat and Potatoes, got acclaim at Tropfest, we came second, and I won the Nicole Kidman Award for Best Actress and stuff. Like, it was great. And it's a really funny little short about 2 vegans in the apocalypse. Like, that just doesn't work because what are they going to eat? And it worked really well, and the chemistry that I had with Jackson, my co-star, was fantastic, and like, it was a banger, but it really propelled me forward because with Eleanor, and I'm so happy to talk about this, an instance happened where Meat and Potatoes got picked up. Bizarre, this stuff doesn't happen. This guy who owns a short film festival called Australian Short Film Today asked me to fly to Paris to share the film at the Australian Embassy for a night of short films. And she was getting, there was friction coming up because I was getting asked to speak on things because I held multiple roles and she held co-director. That's it. So when you hold the most and your production company owns the rights to a short, obviously you're kind of handballed things. Also because I was an actor, I was media trained, it just sort of became a thing where if there's one person to invite, it was me.
Yep.
And I got invited, she did not. And as a surprise, he flew me first class. And I didn't know that. And I got to the airport and was like, holy shit, she thought that I knew. And we had a falling out over this because she didn't trust that I knew that, she didn't trust that I was unaware, because therefore if I was aware, the right thing to do obviously would have been like, thank you so much, but there is 2 of us, can you please fly us both? But I didn't know, and I got to the airport and the flight had happened and I called her, and then this disconnect and it fell away. I think she also realised what I realised with Nick, which was, as long as I work with Arielle, because she's so capable, I'm always going to be next to, not as a duo. And now a lot of people have partnerships that is really important, I think, to bring up. Unless they're family, not a lot of partnerships work out, or marriages. Like, where are the South Park creators, unicorns, I don't know, can you think of any? Maybe like the Monday Swimwear girls, Keep It Cleaner.
Yep.
But I can't think of that many.
Paige and Hannah, Giggly Squad.
Yeah.
Is one, but it's very few and far between.
Yeah, and it's tricky, and I'm kind of glad that I got that out of the way really early on, because it just meant that I could drive whatever I wanted, and and it was a hard pill to swallow, but also, and I'm glad that it happened when we were like very grassroots and not like legal or anything to come around, but it showed me how capable I was, and that I could do many things. So anyway, sorry, to answer your question, Cinema Thom happened because I needed a PTY LTD to claim our Tropfest prize money. Started it. It was during the Me Too movement, so there was a lot of stuff happening. I was also working at the shop floor at Scanlon Theodore at the time, and they were like, that was when you'd walk through the airport and all the billboards were starting to be motion. You know, you're like, oh, okay, Gucci are doing film now, or Spike Jonze doing the Kenzo film with Margaret Qualley, that kind of thing. Like, it was very apparent that video wasn't enough now, and all the videographers that were on set were like skater friends of the camera assistant, or it was very masculine still.
Yeah.
But that was also changing because they were trying to balance out on sets how all that was to come about. So there was a lot in why it came about, but I'm so happy that it did. And yeah, Cinema Thom now is, I don't even know what I would call it, but yeah, it's grown a lot, obviously.
And because it's kind of a play on your last name, isn't it? Like, how did you get to Cinema Thom?
I thought it was going to be a blog, and then I was like, this is easy. And then I wanted to call it Tom, and then there was a lot of places like Map Projects was one of my friends' companies in the US that I really admire. I was looking around at different things, and I don't know, Cinema Thom just sounded like a bit chic. That also, there was a woman in my life that nurtured me quite a bit. She like continuously took me out to dinner when I was in New York, and she was the girlfriend of one of my dad's best friends, and her name was Thom, Thom. I had dinner, he came to Christmas like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, I named my business after Tom. He's like, her name's not even Tom, it was Nadia, I just called her Tom. And I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, relevant. But like, I just loved her and everything that she represented. I just thought she was the coolest, like most generous woman. So I was like, oh, and then also one of our favorite DPs, Tom Neal, he was great. And then also I was like, fuck it, I can name it this in a male-dominated industry. So it was a little bit of a fuck you during the Me Too movement. But yeah, that came about, I don't know. I was pretty nervous about the name. And one person in my life, Jen Gubrick, who I adore, she was like, it's fucking chic, do it. And I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
we're doing it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And do you feel like the creative vision and, because what I find as well with producing, it does have those entrepreneur elements.
Yes.
And when you started, because almost like it kind of started somewhat accidental.
Yeah.
Did you have like a vision of what you wanted it to be, and how did that evolve over time as well?
It's definitely changed. I was, in the early days, I had a team of writers working with me to create a TV show about schoolies, and I was going to produce it and put myself in it. I was very heavy on pieces of work that I was trying to muster and going through Screen Australia, taking meetings, doing all that. I was like a filmmaker through and through to get things off the ground that I could act in. And then there was an occurrence about 2018 after Tropfest on set, and which I don't speak about, but I hated it. And I was like, okay, 6 months I'm going behind the camera, and I'm just going to stop trying to push this because I had a really bad experience. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to push this. And then ever since I went all in on that and honed all of my attention into Cinema Thom just as production, it flew. I ended up hiring a girl called Tiana who worked with me pretty loyally for 2.5, 3 years. And with her in my pocket, our candor and our shorthand became so strong. We became known for the work that we were doing. And then I moved through, because of her, I also had the ability to be a director and not have to ask to be a director. I just was. And so we would arrive on set for like Subi or Scanlan or Mecca or whatever, and she would set up the camera and I would be the one directing talent and speaking to clients. She was my DP through and through. She would also light, and I was directing, producing, and that was how we worked. And then I would go into pre-production for something, she would be in post of the last job, and then we would meet it would just keep going on and on and on, and it never stopped. And it was so fun, but it got fatigued in the end. But I think we both just reached a ceiling at each other's skill sets and where we wanted to take things. But it's definitely evolved because I just got so obsessed with brand. And I think I've always been exposed to brand, like even my upbringing, I was always exposed to brand. Like Dad consistently like reading magazines and being like, look at this ad, look at this, isn't this interesting how they've done this, wow, like da da da. And like he was constantly just thinking about how to improve things, how to do things. And so I was very aware of that. And then things like when you're a filmmaker and you move things, you're consistently pushing shit uphill, consistently, because you're young and it's competitive. everybody's got energy and you're just trying to get given a shot. I think as soon as I moved into the brand side and that's all I did and that's all I focused on, the wins happened so quickly that I was like, this is where I'm kind of meant to be. And I miss it. And people are like, oh, do you want to get into TV? Obviously, like that's the goal, right? But it's not really for me. I don't have that streak in me to be like, oh, I'd love to write a script about a woman doing this and this and this. Like, I just felt it was so much more strenuous to be working like that and on film and TV and narrative. Yeah, and now things just move so fast. I don't think I would turn around. And you know, there's so many opportunities now with brand to go deeper and do those like mini doco pieces or whatever. I think my attention span, because I'm in the expertise space of TikTok as well, my attention span's way too short now to focus on that. Like, fuck. Even if they were like, we're on this project for a year, I'd be like,
he was like, I want to do this tomorrow. Like, can we shoot it and then be done with
it? Seriously, yeah, it's insane. So I think I've just, to use your word, acclimatized to that in a new way as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. And because what I find interesting as well, I was literally speaking to one of my friends about this morning, is like, because I feel like almost like everyone that I know came from an actor's background, but then has completely spread in like so many different ways. And I find what I found about when I was doing research for this podcast interview is that you also started as an actor and then you branched off into this as well. And I don't know, I felt really, that's why I wanted you on as well, is because sometimes acting is not what you think it is. Yeah. And it's really tough, and it's like you can be the hardest working person in the room, and it means absolute jack shit. Yeah. And I remember you were saying in terms of when you do that as an actor, but then you put the same process into your process podcast. Yeah. And the compound interest that you get on that is exponentially more rewarding, and you can actually see the difference that you make. Whereas when you're doing an actor, it's almost like starting over again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that thing of just like the grass grows where you water it. With acting, it doesn't. And as an adult, I think there's like, you know, that like, that saying of like the Billy Joel song Vienna, and it's like, slow down you crazy child, and it's like all about just being so ambitious, and I think when straight out the gate you have that energy, acting is fantastic for that energy, but at some point or another, if depending on what you want in life, I kind of had to grow up. And although I totally still treat my business like I'm Peter Pan and the world is my oyster and I can do whatever I want, but I loved the control that this job now gives me. I understand spreadsheets and projections, and I know when I can pay my rent. And as an actor, you really have to have an appetite for that. But I don't know, something about it, and also that experience that I had on set that wasn't great. I was the best version of myself when I was getting yeses instead of nos, and I didn't want to spend a life like that. To do it now with what I know now, I think I'd be a lot more strategic. But also, I wasn't a very good auditioner, I realised. And when you're not a very good auditioner because you're nervous or whatever, and that anxiety is running through you, how are you you have to be your most comfortable self in a room. And I think the climate that I was in at the time, it was Australian TV shows like Dr. Blake Murder Mysteries, which is now no longer, a lot of like Australian sort of like ABC cop shows where you're just doing guesties, where you're the girlfriend of the guy that's been killed and you're crying.
Like Blue Heeler, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and those sort of opportunities are just like, you're just being cast to fill a spot, and especially being in Melbourne and not in Sydney. Firstly, the Sydney scene was so cliquey and I didn't like it. And when you're in this like scene in Melbourne, that they were the roles, and when you're not a good auditioner, period, you can get better at auditioning, but that's a long-term game. I just was like, this is not for me. I think that I had depth in me that I was bursting to get out, and the reason I wanted to act was to make people feel less alone. But I think now I still fulfill that side of me through what I'm doing now. Yeah. And I like doing well. Yeah. You know, and I don't know, I think that happens with, like as you said, so many people start as actors and branch out into other things. Firstly, because you have to learn how to produce stuff. But it's an incredible resilience muscle that you grow as an actor, because you're just literally borrowing and stealing. We're like fucking scavengers. We're like, okay, and then there's an opportunity here and we're going to give it our all and da-da-da. And like the speed that we're expected to learn lines, show up, be our best, audition, wait, on to the next one. That's not going to work out, bugger, move on. You know, like that resilience doesn't happen in any other workforce, I don't think.
No.
Like even if you're a carpenter, you usually get the job, you do the job, and then you get paid for the job and you move on. There's very little occupations where you have so many false starts, and that comes a part of you to have so many false starts. That's crazy.
Yeah. Because it's like, have you found like with the level of rejection, because you're constantly, as an actor, saying getting no's.
Yeah.
You're constantly sending cold emails where you just get absolute no response.
Yeah.
And also when you get to kind of the end, sometimes your scenes are cut, you never see your influence in the work. Yeah. Did you find that grit really helped you as an entrepreneur and a creator now?
Yeah, I think what you do as an actor is you go all in when a shiny opportunity happens. And I've done that to myself a few times, where you go all in and people are like we've got a brand email us about, and it's a good opportunity to do her entire 360 of content and socials, and to go all in a short burst and be like, boom, is the same energy that advertising agencies, entrepreneurial brand marketers, like people want that. Whereas agency level or others that are brought up through marketing or whatever are kind of more like, oh yeah, we'll see what the opportunity has. We'll get on a call and we'll see what you're after. But the energy that as an actor you're met with new opportunity, to apply that to anything else is so rare for what these people are usually faced with. So of course you're going to have success, because you are the most passionate, hardworking individual that they're meeting with for this opportunity or whatever it is. So it's definitely served me. It gets me into trouble because I overcommit. But I think that's also now like one of the key things that I get told about is, thank you for bringing your energy to this, because so many people, it's very monotonous for them. But I think that actor in me is so like, I'm going to gobble up this script and make it my own. It's like, I'm going to gobble up this fucking creative deck that you've created and I'm going to embody it, and like, okay, it's a fucking PDF, like relax. You know what I mean? Like it has served me for sure. But I think it also, I know so many actors, especially like Amelia Dowd, who was an actor and who then started photographing headshots and now is one of the most in-demand fashion and beauty photographers in Australia. It's the same thing. Like she took something, did it, embodies it, becomes it, gives everything she's got to something. And I guess others that come up in the same way don't. So our DNA of, and we were so impressionable then because we want it so badly. It's kind of sad, isn't it? But
yeah. I know, because it's such an interesting, because it's probably the same for you. It's such an interesting point in my life, because I essentially spent my whole 20s fighting for this, because I was like, I believe in myself so deeply that I will get X, Y, and Z. But it's like there's so much that's out of your control that it's like. Yeah, I remember seeing like Sarah Paulson, and I was like, oh yeah, when I'm 40, like I'm gonna make it. And then you get to, I got to 29, and I was like, I can't do this for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it's actually not sustainable, feasible, and it's just not. You don't want to do it anymore. It just gets fatiguing.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky that I didn't have to have the chat with myself to be like, when are we giving ourselves till? I've got actor friends from school days that are going through that right now, because we've been out for like 10 years, 12 years now. They would have to be having a real hard look at themselves to be like, if I bring a child into this world, what kind of stability do I want them to have, etc. But I was really lucky that just the universe showed me the way, and I was like, the doors are open and the wins are happening. I didn't have to, have that, because that would be heartbreaking to have to really have that chat to pivot and get a job and be like, oh. But Tyler, my editor, reminds me all the time that we chose this wild circus of a profession and we get paid to do it every day. He's not editing his own documentaries or what he wants to do, but how amazing that he gets to be paid to do it at that level.
And still be creative as well. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I give him so much license because I believe in him.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, the work that he does is pretty bloody good considering he's editing brand videos and stuff. I'm like, that's really, like, it's really strong work. But he constantly reminds me that we're really lucky to do it. And he's just a great person to have around in general. But yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when you started Cinema Thom and you're kind of pivoting into brand and all that kind of thing, what weaknesses can you identify that you had then that you had to work on? Because obviously, you know, being a creator was quite your strongest aspect. What were the things like, obviously now you have a juicy P&L, but what were the things where you were like, oh my God, I literally have no idea how to do X, Y, and Z. And now you're like, oh, I can literally do that like the back of my hand kind of thing.
The organization and I think, I don't know how to articulate it as such, but this is the first time I think I've actually had to talk about it in such a cold way. This would usually come up in like a petite if I've given someone so much context. But in the past 2 years, I stopped drinking. And I also, because I was going to freeze my eggs, and I was like, well, if I froze them in January, and I was like, if I'm going to freeze them, I want to have bloody good ones. So let's not drink and dilute them. Let's be really good and go to Pilates and like win the day. So I did that. And then I just realized that it brought on this sharpness of the mind that I was ahead of the work. And because I was getting so many yeses, and because I was so passionate, and because of all these things, like for opportunities flying in and out, I was sort of like, I would let the day happen to me, I wasn't on the front foot. Often I was on the back foot meeting deadlines. And I'm not perfect, so I'm definitely, even today, I'm like behind on a fucking mood board for lamps, whatever. But there's like stuff that would happen to me that I would then have to apologize because the client would ask me for it again. And now there is no way in hell that I would let that happen. I really take ownership, and it's probably also a relationship thing. I'm much better at managing the relationship and the expectations and being who they expect me to be. There's been a lot of trauma in the past like 3-4 years as well, that when something hits me, and yesterday I had a confrontation with a friend that didn't go very well. They expected me to be available, and I'm just not right now, and they're quite toxic, mind you, so I'm having to kind of distance myself from that. But the way that washes over me, I don't become a very proactive version of myself. I kind of have a brain fog, and there's blocks in me to doing tasks. So it's sort of like a procrastination version of myself. So I've also learned to detach myself from people that put that anxiety in me so that I can get on with the work. I am the best version of myself so I can get on with the work. And also I'm just more here for it. Like, I show up in a much different way, and much more in front of the 8 ball than I ever have been. And alcohol would attribute to that, I think, because I definitely wasn't even a drinker, but I'm a better friend to myself. So when I am, oh, my ex texted me, do I reply? No, you don't. Or you shut it down immediately, versus being your cheeky little self being like, hee, like, but how are you? Shut up. You know it's going to end badly. And then just that as like a linear exploration, I know that something's going to happen that would induce my anxiety, and tomorrow I've got to deliver XYZ. Don't engage. Just little things like that, or like even moments with family members, things like that. So I'm much better at looking after myself in terms of like a blueprint of my best life now, of not letting that anxiety take over, that was a long-winded way to answer that, sorry, but like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like you've really I feel like maybe found your boundaries within friends and families, but also that self-sabotage component that we all have, and being able to be like, oh, I know what this is that self-sabotage. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that and let it be, and then move on from that, and not text the ex and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so. I grew up with the real like vein in me that I'm the person people go to, and I'm proud of that, but also fuck off. Because I'm happy to be that, but now to an extent. Yeah. I grew up with like a lot of addiction, a lot of around me, not me. But that I was the one. And I'm proud to be that person, and I'm happy that I did, because some people are still here today because of that inner strength and that support that I was able to give. However, time and a place, bruh. No.
Not on a Monday morning where you're doing the pay slips, the P&L, all the things.
Yeah, like it's just, yeah, I think I've grown up in that, because also when you are that person, it can kind of be like a bit of an armor that you wear of why you are the way you are, and you're an empath and it's deep and shit, but like, it's not that deep, just chill out.
Yeah, and you're like, I literally have someone spitting at me, talking about me for 2 hours about their problems, and they're not doing anything, and they're going to tell me again on Thursday.
Yeah, and also people treating you really poorly and then expecting you to just be there and be a punching bag.
Yeah, yeah.
I sort of like in the past would always make excuses for that person, and that's fine if they are a certain kind of way, but why is that my problem now? You know, and like I've evolved, why aren't they? And yes, there's like mental illness at play, and there's all sorts of different things going on in this world, but also I don't have to deal with that. Like who said that was, you know? So I think a lot of that is probably the most, to answer your question, the most steps in leaps and bounds that I've taken that have actually propelled the business forward is the emergence of me. But of course, obviously, like learning how to do a spreadsheet, relationships, starting the podcast has been huge. Lots of stuff. Yeah.
And going on the pivoting to the podcast, because obviously we got to talk about Cinema Thom, which I'm so obsessed with. I feel like I can talk about it for days.
Same.
It's so good. And but I love, because I was actually trying to remember like how I found you, because obviously there's always like a lead of where, and I couldn't picture. I know it's definitely through Instagram in some capacity, but how that was, I couldn't remember. But you just celebrated 100 years. 100 years?
100 years? I'm so old, guys. I'm anxious.
100 episodes.
Yeah.
How was it, like, how did it feel coming to this milestone? And also, where did the Process podcast birth from? Because it feels like it was something that you needed, and tell me a bit about that.
I was pretty much maybe like 6 months out of COVID. I was looking for ways to be relevant if I didn't have to do the work. So I was looking at like, is it an online course? Is it emails? What am I doing here? And I was sort of searching for that, because I'm not sure if I don't know where that piece literally came from, but I also was very aware of my unfair advantage. And I know that I worked on the shop floor at Scanlan, so I had an easy route into fashion film. It was just a matter of emailing the PR girl. And then that timing of everything, once you do Scanlan, I then did Vogue. As soon as you have Vogue in an email, your unfair advantage becomes your leaping off point for so many different things. And that kind of coined from my parents owned a hotel for all of my upbringing, and the guests that stayed there were so affluent. And my parents are really hospitable. I was in a really great position, because once somebody stays somewhere where they make their stay extra special, nothing is owed to them ever, but it is a different kind of transaction when the person that housed you asks you for something. So I was always on a very pleasant receiving end when mum and dad would email somebody to say, hey, Arielle's really crazy, like Anthony LaPaglia was staying at the hotel. Dad was having a drink with him. They became really good mates. And he said, my daughter's an actor. Anthony then started mentoring me for like a year or so, just because he was impressed with my steps. I think when you show up and you are really doing what's best for you, and your shit's together basically, and you've got things in the pipeline. When I met Anthony, I wasn't necessarily just like hoping on a wish and a prayer that I was going to be an actor. I was like writing a TV show. I had all these other things going on. I was hustling. I was at meetings. So I think when there's a saying like there's like a religious saying that like God rewards others if you do, you know, I'm not religious in the slightest, but the universe helps those who help themselves kind of a thing. I had that going for me, and that's been an advantage for me my whole life. So when I opened up that can of worms to people in my little black book, it came back in spades, because firstly, the people that I was interviewing had never been on a podcast before. It was in Australia, and it wasn't the time that people were starting podcasts here. All of it was either you're a business owner, and people were very like into the Frank Body girls and that kind of thing. They weren't interested in the editor of Vogue or anything like that. So to interview them, I also had done a lot of video on set with these people, and so I had their emails, I knew them, we had a candor, and I was able to really quickly say like, hey, I'd love to interview you. And them showing up as well, because it's interesting when you think about these women, right? Like when we're like teenagers or early 20s, you imagine that the senior fashion editor at Vogue, Pip Moroney, who was my first ever guest, now I'm 33. She would have been 35 at the time, maybe a bit younger. She would now be my age. I don't know how old she is, but thinking of her posting a podcast of herself on Instagram, her group of friends are so beautiful because they're similar to my own friends. They just rallied because she's never put herself out there like that. So when Pip shows up on a pod and it's on Insta, yes, she's got her industry friends, but she also has all the Vogue girls being like, oh my God, Pip was nervous that day she went on a podcast. It's actually really endearing because they don't put themselves out there like that often. So really quickly I learned that when you target people that are not necessarily on podcasts all the time, when you ask them those vulnerable or really meaty questions, it comes back to you with a whole new world because they don't get asked that ever, you know? And now Process has taken a little bit more of a business turn just out of my own curiosities, but we are going much, much further back into our roots of interviewing industry photographers and all that kind of stuff soon. And that's like the next suite of, because now I'm batching. But it came about because I had an unfair advantage that people, also frustration, I guess, from magazines like Wish or How I Spend It or whatever. They were interviewing the people that I wanted to hear from, but it was like 5 questions. What's your favorite, whatever. And they'd be like, I don't know, this like shoe place in Melbourne, cool, but like, tell me more, please, about you. Or I was just so hungry to learn from these people and also find out what they look for. And then obviously that comes back to you because you've got 90 minutes with this person. You've invested time in them. There's that thing like the jab, jab, right hook from Jerry Vaynerchuk. That's almost your jab, jab. Like you give this person your 90 minutes. You then talk about them for a whole week on your socials or a fortnight. And then your right hook is, hey, could I work for you? Or could you look at my folio? Or could you consider me for this job? Like things do come back to you. And that happened quite quickly straight after. It was very, also it keeps me very, I haven't put or posted anything on Cinema Thom for 6 months maybe. Just because I'm like, who am I? Like rebrand, what the fuck? I think on the bio, it's like in recalibration. It's not, I'm just like stalling because I don't know what to do about what I call it or like what I say we do now because I'm like, there's so much to do. But that I don't need to post because people are listening to the podcast now. So now it's just become this whole other vein. 2 girls came up to me. I was at a conference for Black Friday on Friday and 2 women came up to me and were like, are you Arielle? I listened to your podcast. And I was like, oh my God. So reaching the 100 episode milestone has done that. It's compounded and a lot of people know about it now. I was pretty disappointed that I set the goal that surely by 100 episodes, I've got the podcast like funded. But also that shit takes time and you have to find the right people. But also I don't show up on social media as if I'm the kind of person that someone would see how they sponsor it. That's something we're working on now too. Like Mon, who's on my team, she originally actually started with me because she was doing partnerships for me and just emailing and getting us, she helped me throw the event and do all that kind of stuff, just freelance. And then she was like, I actually love this, I want to come full time. So that organically came from reaching 100. But if a brand was to look at the Process socials, I don't think that they would look at it and be like, that's where we fit. Fuck yeah, let's get Arielle to do that for us. So that's a part of what we're working on this quarter as well. And I'm trying to take things off my plate to give to Mon so that I can be on camera being like, hey guys, this is what I use, Rode mics or whatever, or hey, like spend a day in the life with me, I'm doing this, feat this product. Like at the moment, the content doesn't actually exist yet. And I think if I'm so big on reverse engineering, I need to drink my own Kool-Aid there and actually do the work rather than just being like, we have an audience, be a part of it. Like how and what? What do you mean? You know, it's like all well and good to do an ad read, but like, come on now, you know that it's really I'll move the needle if I'm the one making the content and showing up. And I think it's hard when you do the work for others to finally do the work for yourself is a big transition that I'm in right now as well, to actually, okay, you make viral TikToks, do you? Fucking make one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh God, okay. But like we don't want to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. But it's interesting as well because I think it was your most recent Petite episode where you discussed this, and it was interesting that it's like from the social aspect, because I would have thought it was from like viewership and like, you know, product placement, essentially, like, you know, kind of coming from that filmmaker lens. But it's, like, can you tell me a bit about that? Because that's quite interesting actually as well.
It just seems so all well and good that product placement and that listenership and all of that would get people excited, but a marketer or someone that's thinking about the budgets when you email to be like, oh, like for example, we'd be emailing Xero or Mecca or for Emma Lewisham. That's probably a prime example. Arielle's never posted a video before doing her skincare. She doesn't post day in the life. So what's the angle? Oh, you're saying she will. Oh, okay. So what does that look like for us? Then it becomes a risk.
Yeah.
It's so much easier if we already
to
have
show it up.
Yeah, and an audience acclimatized to a Get Ready With Me or to a day in the life. Like, I think it's tricky when it's so competitive. They're getting, I mean, how many bloody content creators are there? That person, who his name I won't say for privacy, is the one at Mecca on the tools every day getting pitched to, pitch. It's pretty entitled for me to be like, bro, I know you haven't seen it, but just trust me, it's going to be good. It'll be good, I swear. Shut up, make it.
Yeah.
And then just let him see the work that you're saying you can do. You know, like create it already. And Jen Day, who came on the podcast, she's a talent rep. She gets that a lot. She gets creators saying, oh, but I will do this. It's like, well, do it and just put your money where your mouth is and actually make it so that they can see, and don't just sell them on a dream.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where that came from. It's like, I've got to make the work now and warm up my audience for that. Like Xero, I speak about cash flow. We don't share templates. I don't speak to directly how I do money. I've peppered in there that I've turned things around and what I'm working on, but I don't literally share that yet. But we're about to pitch to Xero. So I'm starting to add that into the work again so that it just is an easy yes. It's not a fingers crossed Arielle doesn't embarrass me here because I've gone out on a limb for her to say to my team and my manager, this person is worth investing in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that and it's really interesting as well because you've almost like preserved IP because you're like, hey, because I haven't shared X, Y, and Z, I will share this when, or like I can share a version of this when you potentially come on board kind of thing as well. So that's quite interesting in that framework as well.
Yeah, it is. I sort of am in two minds about that because I came at it thinking that, but now I totally understand that person, marketer McGee,
then like,
they need to see it. So how much do I share? And also if people are top of funnel and they're new to your audience and you share it once, when do I share it again? That they're not like, bro, you spoke about this ages ago. So now we're getting into themes of the podcast as well. So like October's supposed to be money month. October's literally around the corner. But like, okay, what are we sharing there? And then we don't really talk about money again until when? Okay, but so many people love that. So how deep do I go in that well? I don't know. We're figuring it out.
It's interesting because I feel like themes comes up a lot for you as well. Like you have a theme for every month for, is it for you and then your companies, or like how do you structure that?
It's sort of had to come about because there's too many ideas and we need to, I get asked a lot of questions from the podcast now, and I get asked a lot about how I do what I do and how did this happen and but themes have just helped me kind of be like, oh, I will talk about that, but I'll talk about it in October. And also it's helped with a content ecosystem. If you're starting a business, you know you've got to be on EDMs, TikTok, Instagram. Oh, okay, well this is really good, shareable content, blah, blah, blah. It's sort of helped me to sort. Because imagine if you've got Post-it notes of every idea and then it's like, I'll color code it. That's so annoying. And like, okay, then you've just got to reread all the ideas again. It's much easier in like Notion to be like, October, money, idea. And then when you're planning for that, be like, oh no shit, okay, yeah, we will share a template. The EDM will be about this. Oh, we're supposed to do a community dinner. Why don't we invite the girls from So Invested or something like that that's actually like quite poignant. And then also it gets exciting because you can really take the listenership on a whole journey with you to be like, ladies, money, and then everyone kind of gets behind that. Because process is so expansive in what we talk about and parts of the process, it's a bit easier to manage when there's themes, I think. And we're starting to do themes across Remy now too, now that that's like coming out of its MVP phase, which I can talk about later. Remy's the energy gummy, but that needs themes as well, like, because otherwise there's just so many ideas. How do you know, and you'll hit it too with this podcast. You'll be like, fuck, like, what am I sharing? How do I do that? Like, what's the supplementary content other than just the guests? You'll build a community and you'll be like, what do I share? What do they need to know? What's going to help them? Everything, but everything in order, hopefully, you know?
Yeah. And do you find when you get questions from like audience members, from clients, all that kind of thing, what are the most recurring questions that you receive?
Oh my God, that's so hard. I've never thought about that. I don't know, actually. I can't answer that. It's so different. A lot of people are like, in person, people will ask me how I started. I think people want to know, I don't know. I actually have no idea. That's so hard to answer. They don't. It's different for everybody.
Yeah. Because
we'd have to go more streamlined for me to find that answer, I think.
But what I'm interested is like how do you start? And I always find that question quite interesting because it feels like with Cinema Thom, with Process, and also with Remy, it's almost like I had to start this. Like I had like no choice to start this because it came from a pain point or it came from this almost like frustration of something. So yeah, I always find like, how do you answer that question when someone asks you?
Do you get that?
Yeah.
Is that what you meant just then, that you had to start this?
Yeah.
I think it just happens. You kind of start something and you tinker privately, and then you'll set a date because you're like, well, fuck, I've got to do something here. And then you're like, well, shit, I've set it in public now.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of that and setting deadlines and saying to myself or saying to my team or saying to the public. The podcast listeners also have kept me incredibly accountable because I can't do anything now without people being like, but you said that, where's that? And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Kate. Like, now I'm going to go shoot that.
Yeah, like, damn it. So there's a lot there that as soon as I say I'm going to do something, I do it. But also I'm experimenting as I go. And the beauty of now, and I'm so grateful that I did, called Process, if I stop something, like for example, Jasmine Dowling's episode got paired with a baked in ad read of me talking about a course that I was running for socials, because that's set up because we were having a quiet month and we needed cash flow, and I was like, great, I'll teach some people. And there was also appetite. A lot of people were really interested in that. I don't do that course anymore. I'm far too busy. And I know that people would listen to that, be like, oh, interesting, she did that, and then listen to that. Many people have since asked me about the course, being like, I can't find anything on it. But because it's called Process, they're a lot more forgiving about the fact that that didn't actually work out for me. This is a grey area that I'm building in real time. And yes, I'm a woman of my word, but some things change.
Yeah.
And it's not like I didn't bring out the course. I did, but I just didn't renew it. Mm-hmm. So in the back of my head, there's also shit like, oh, fuck, you've got to change that ad read, dude. Like, just remove that in the edit. But that also takes time, as you know. But there's pieces to that. I'm really grateful that it's called Process, because I can say very honestly, I thought this, but it's actually not that for me. And because it's Process, everything is a bit more forgiving. When you just start something, it's murky and it can go either way, but setting that date has definitely helped me.
Yeah.
For sure. And saying it publicly and being like, I'm doing it. And also doing it quite loudly. Like setting a podcast with Pip Maroney. Well, great. She's, okay, we're off and running. Saying that I release episodes every Tuesday. People wait for it now. Like in the group chat, last Tuesday, the Hedy Slimane episode, I've been so busy that the podcast episodes unfortunately now get pushed. I do client work first, naughty, and then do the podcast work. That got dropped on Wednesday because I just wasn't ready, and I had to put in the group chat, guys, like, all part of the process. I fucked it up this week and I'm not giving it to you. And some of the girls are like, so what time do you drop on Tuesdays? Because we're waiting. And I'm like, but I'm so grateful for them, but also I'm not perfect. There's a silver lining to it, but also I'm like, fuck.
It's kind of nice because it's like, it's almost meta in a way as well, because it's like process kind of gives you, like the audience gives you grace, but you kind of almost give yourself grace as well, of being like, hey, like I'm building in real time, like, you know, like I'm trying my best, but there's only so many hours I have in the day to do X, Y, and Z.
Yes, I think to do weekly is a lot more enticing to sponsors. So we are going to get back on that path. And I've found a new podcast editor to sort of alleviate and remove all this friction. But since July 1st, I've hired 2 new people. 1 didn't work out. I'm the busiest I've ever been. I've done the biggest campaign and we're in post-production for something in CGI that is the most confusing and time-consuming thing I've ever worked with. And we're in the lead up to the busiest sale period of the year. There's so much going on that I'm trying, but yeah, as you said, I've got to give myself grace. But also sometimes it's like, well, you fucking signed up for this, so yeah, you got to stay up till midnight. You did this, so cute. You're not getting any sleep tonight, Joel. You know, there's a bit of that, a bit of both.
Yeah. So is that like that the kind of like circling back to that kind of like Alex Hormozy, like, you know, you need to do the thing, but also having that kind of almost you know, nurturing of being like, it is okay, but we do need to get this done, kind of thing.
Yes, because I also tell myself, well, I'm getting it done in my very cozy apartment late at night, where if I wasn't editing this, I'd be watching some stupid show. I can make a coffee at 5 o'clock in the caffeine, or have a Remy, which is why I created it, to give me that extra bit to work into the night. And I don't know any entrepreneur that works 8 hours a day. So I'm in the trenches with others. Just do it. Like, yeah, I find it tricky when one makes excuses for themselves, because I also don't like being that lenient on myself to be like, well, it's okay, you can have a little rest. It's like, who said? What do you mean? We're trying to build something here. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very kind of, I grapple with that, but I think mostly I get it done. Yeah. Yeah. Just cool. It's just usually late at night but I love it also when my team leaves. Yeah. Because then you can finally do the work that you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. Yeah, there's that piece too, which is wild.
Going back on when we were talking about, you know, people when they're like, oh, how do you start? What advice would you give to like new, like kind of, because what I find interesting and why I wanted to bring you on is because I find sometimes actors or filmmakers get really stuck in being like, I can only do this. Yeah. And like, if I don't get the TV show or if I don't write this, then they kind of don't do anything else. And I know when I was an actor, I was waitressing and like literally just sacrificed everything to do this thing. And what I really like about your journey is that you can show like where you can get to with all of these skill sets that you get from acting, from filmmaking, and you can create your own journey. And you've almost like molded it to be like, oh, this is Arielle's like universe, and you're not like in terms of like brand universe, which is like, I feel like something that people are talking more and more about, of like, you're in so many pockets, but for you, it like makes so much sense. Yeah. Because if you told someone that you also had like a gummy that is like, you know, has creatine in it, someone would be like, what?
Yeah, my elevator pitch is cooked. They're like, what are you doing? Yeah.
But it's so like, I find it interesting because it just shows like who you are. What advice would you give to someone who was in those steps of like being an actor, being a filmmaker, and feeling really frustrated with, you know, not having their own thing or not getting the jobs that they're wanting to do, and now pivoting into where you're at now?
I MVP things pretty religiously, like minimum viable product them. Remy's been in a minimum viable product phase now for 4 or 5 months. I launched it in March or April, and there's an audience there and an appetite, and people love the gummies, and they're an energy source from L-carnitine and L-theanine, which is in the creatine family. But the way that they can give you a boost within 5 minutes, I just naturally know if the podcast is building an audience of women just like me, and I'm working personally really hard on client work, people on the podcast were consistently like, how do you have so much energy to do this? And the gummy came about because I was literally microdosing creatine, and then I found a better way that was a little bit more healthy with L-carnitine. And I was like, well, why not bring this to them almost as like a gift? But then also it worked out that we didn't have sponsors necessarily for the podcast, because it sounds like this episode's obviously powered by Remy, because it is. And then it sort of just came about that it was like, well, I've got a team. This isn't that hard. People that want to create things that are meticulous, and I'm like a better done than perfect kind of person. The MVP is not perfect. The next product, we're having a different bottle, less gummies in there. It's a very different marketing pitch, and I've got to shoot the campaign for it. But Remy, to this date, I've only put in about $5,000 for.
Oh, wow.
Because that's all it costs.
Yeah.
It's a really low cost product to create. And I got it done offshore because although, yes, I have the integrity through my veins that I would love to produce in Australia, that's just not viable right now because we're ordering such low MOQs. Australian gummy manufacturers are in the confectionery game or they're in the medicinal cannabis game. There is not a supplement gummy factory as such that's keen enough to do 3,000 bottles. Plenty of them in China. I went to the factory. I did that. I did my due diligence. I adore the factory owners. They're really lovely people. Fred, the chairman, I'm obsessed with him. He's great. But the choices and stuff that I'm making are sort of like I dip my toe into a lot of things. And I think if I turned around to the podcast community or anyone in anywhere and said, the gummy thing worked, but it's just not viable in this market because it is getting really, really competitive, I think that they would understand, and I would give myself a pat on the back for just giving it a crack. I don't want to live a life that I didn't try things out. Even my own girlfriends are fucking sick of me putting shit out. They're like, are you going again and you're going again? Cool. Like, oh, so how much does this launch mean? Is this like something we should care about, or is this just you constantly on your own hamster wheel, like giving things a crack? Because I just constantly will tinker and try and do. And I had Remy as a brand. I started in 2018 because I was in a really emotionally abusive relationship and I started drawing charcoal nudes. That then came about. I have the ability to make beautiful brands, and I also wanted to test things at the time and then share them with clients, like, oh, this really worked for me in Facebook ads, or oh, this is great, like, let's do that for you. Because as a filmmaker, I maybe had a bit of an insecurity around my ability as a social media marketer. I could tell stories and I could make you a fashion film, but let me also put that into an Instagram reel and now heavily into TikTok or whatever. So that piece kind of came about just from also being so happy to just tinker and try and do. But now Remy is a brand that means something to me, and I don't know what will happen to it and how far it will go. Now our sights are set on Mecca. God knows how that'll go. The podcast listeners know that. But that piece is also really interesting because it's just a challenge, and I'm like, let's go, like, giddy up.
So good.
And it's exciting for the podcast listeners and just even my own friends to be like, how's that going? And with the petite episodes, I've given myself almost a platform in an amphitheatre for people to just watch this and be like, how are you doing that? And being like, oh, let's figure it out. Because I don't think enough people have examples of people figuring out in real time. There are so many entrepreneurs that do it and then look back and be like, I did this.
Yeah.
That's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
There's a couple that become quite addictive that are doing it in real time as well, but they're very bro-y. I don't know any women, maybe Grace Beverley, a British influencer content creator who has Tala, but she's sort of on a different league because she's raising $5 million for seed funding or whatever she's doing, and then she shares the deck that got her there, but that almost feels a little bit out of one's league. Whereas Remy, like, I've got the footage of me going to the factory.
Yeah.
I've got the footage of me testing and learning different creatine levels. I've got that. It's not that hard. You just sort of have to commit and do it and say yes, and also budget, so that you don't trip over yourself. And I'm a big experimenting budget girl. We've got shit in the budget for Arielle's crazy experiments. Like,
oh, I love that.
Like, I signed up yesterday for something that did not work. I paid $176 for a new AI thing that creates influencers speaking to you, but they're AI. And the ad sold me because the AI was good enough, but me, like, it was natural enough, but me looking on the back end and trying it myself for 6 hours, I couldn't get the person looking real enough. That $176 has now gave me 6 months of ease to be like, AI is not there yet.
Yeah.
And it's given me the expertise because I've done my time trying, that I can't just tell a brand, just get AI to do it. Maybe an agency that with like prompt engineers and stuff could be figuring that out, but the grassroots, people trying to sell you on Instagram and TikTok about like, you don't need influencers, you just need AI. Like, I did this for free. No, you didn't.
No.
So I like to test those things because then I can give my word to clients as well about like, I see where you're coming from there. Because they say things in meetings all the time, off the cuff. They're like, oh, but isn't AI there yet? And
Yeah.
no, it's not. So I like testing and learning those things because also for Remy, no, we still have to gift.
Yeah.
Or we still have to pay UGC or content creators. And this is the best way forward.
Yeah.
I like knowing that and being quite firm on it. And that's kind of how I move everything forward, I guess, because I'm educated and I know how to do things.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Like, when did you put that in the budget? When you're like, I need like a set amount of money.
Only like 6 months ago.
Oh, amazing.
Because I realized my appetite for it. I'm such a cowboy with that stuff, and I'm like, oh, I want to test this now, and it's like, well, otherwise that's going to be an over on the P&L. So why don't you just budget it in and make sure that it's there?
Yeah,
great. If you're like so busy, you didn't have any time to test and learn things, but also, I love buying templates from Creative Market or different places that you can buy things and test new things out or put new things on your website or like little code bits to do crazy things. Like, I like learning what the rest of the internet are up to in terms of what can be done, and that is giving me reward back in tenfold. Like, I just created this thing for Anko called the Co-Creator Program, which is where it's basically their entire their need for influencers and content creators solved. We put something on their app called Anko Club, and it's co-creators. They sign up, and anyone with very little following to mega following can apply, and we gift them product every month, and in exchange they create content for the brand. And the appetite so far has been unbelievable. Like, I've solved the problem for that, which is now Anko is in the Philippines now. There's 3 stores now. There will be 5 by Christmas. There will be, I'm not actually allowed to say, but there will be many more by 5 years. And they're looking at new countries. So they're going next door to Malaysia maybe, or Vietnam, or there are conversations happening globally in Southeast Asia, and product is now in Walmart Canada. When the tariff settle, it'll go into US. Like, there's a lot happening there. Everything that I do, and I do like a cowboy because I have that startup mentality of like, we've got to figure this out for them. I'm solving these businesses' problems in a way that most agencies would charge months of strategy for. I wrote it in a day I wrote it in 10 minutes, let's be honest, in a deck. I was like, this is how it's going to work. And it will work because it's just communication with the public. I get it. Now they're like, oh, we've got to take this contract through legal, we've got to do this, but I'm giving them stepping stones to get things moving really quickly. And that comes from me testing and learning and understanding and having mistakes or accidents or trial things in the buffer for me to be like, no, this will work because I've seen it and I know how this works. So I watch a lot of what happens on the internet and learn and listen a lot, I guess, as well, so that I can back myself in to build new things. And now that program, they're like, oh, well, you budgeted for 5 creators, now we want 20. So then that package just goes way up. And that's money that I didn't expect to be making this half of the year. So now these things compound, but they come out of this ability to move really quickly and back myself because I've done the work to research and see what else is out there, you know? Yeah.
Beautiful. And so what's in the pipeline for the rest of the year? Like, what's the next thing that you're excited about?
I think getting out of that acclimatization phase and sitting in the new way of working. I'm aware that in the phase of business, you do all your work and it's just you, and then you bring someone on, and then to scale, you need systems and processes. We're in that phase now, and Mon is the most beautiful soul and patient, which you need to work with me to build those systems and processes. And although I don't need the systems and processes because I can function, she needs them. And then once they're set, that's when you can scale. So I think I'm probably most excited about that, and to have that step because it's integral and you can't really grow without it. But also learning what that takes from me. Does the work then become less creative? Who can I put in that seat now to scale that? Like, if we sign the client that we're talking to tonight, I can't really do that work. We can as a business, but I'm probably not the right person to lead it. So who is? And do we get a freelancer? How do we, like, there are all these challenges and things coming up that I'm very excited about. And then also the milestones as a director that I'm hitting among Cinema Thom. It's been interesting because if I was to say, oh, I run an agency now and I'm sitting at this top level, I've done it in a way that I'm also very able to direct campaigns that I otherwise wouldn't be handed. I still have great relationships with production companies and agencies that they still come to me as a director, except I've been able to figure out this way where I'm not just creating content. As I sort of like, in my like darkest hour of Cinema Thom, I sometimes go into the doom world of like, I'm just creating TikToks or I'm just doing these social media videos and this is not what I want to do or like whatever. But it's all like somehow it's panned out that I can do. With the most famous person I've ever worked with, I just shot a Christmas campaign with Ann Curtis, who's like the Margot Robbie of the Philippines. And although it's not something I would have thought that I would do, God, it's a good feather in my cap because it's incredible CGI that we've got the budget to do for the first time. I'm ticking career boxes now that if I turned around and Anko didn't work out for some reason, I've got fantastic pieces of content on my reel or whatever as a silo to go out again and do what I thought I would do. So I'm really excited about that piece as well because reputationally, as Arielle Thom, the director, that's also being achieved, which is quite rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, you get like best of both worlds in a way.
Yeah.
From where you started to where you are now kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't have to pitch.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I have a vision.
Here we go.
I'm seeing purple and like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the trust is so there. It's insane. I don't think I've ever heard of a brand getting that much, a creative having that much trust with a brand.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky to have it.
No, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, Arielle.
I can't believe it's over.
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, looking forward to seeing your next steps.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. Yes, I'm so excited to see how this goes.
Thank you.
The podcast world is the Wild West.
Yes, it really is.